As Camden National Bank celebrates 150 years of supporting local businesses, customers, and communities with their financial needs, we want to thank those who put their trust in us. You're the real reason we're celebrating this exciting milestone. Camden National Bank began as a small community bank, sharing space with the local 5 and 10-cent store right here in downtown Camden to serve individuals and small businesses. From that single location, where our main office still operates today, we have grown to 73 banking centers across Maine and New Hampshire. And while we've grown to help more individuals and businesses, our commitment to giving back to our community remains constant. Whether it's joining in the fun at the Camden Snow Bowl for the annual US National Toboggan Championship, or serving cookies and cocoa at Christmas by the Sea, or handing out towels following the Camden Windjammer Festival lobster crate races in the summertime, we continue to immerse ourselves in our communities. That way, those who live here know they have a true financial partner that takes a hands-on approach to customer service and financial advice. We're thankful for the work Camden Famous is doing to shine a light on the businesses and neighbors who have contributed to shaping this Mid-Coast community and our organization.
Welcome to the Camden Famous podcast. I'm your host, April Shaw-Beaudoin, and today I am here with Chef Melissa Kelly of Maine's most iconic restaurant, Primo. And welcome to the show, Melissa.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm so excited. You and I have talked before because you are in our new book coming out this summer, The Insider's Guide to Mid-Coast Maine. And we had a lovely chat, and I knew that you were Italian and Irish. Mm-hmm. And you told me that you grew up kind of having two dinners. You had two really great chef grandparents and great-grandparents. And so that was kind of how you got introduced to chefing.
Kind of. I grew up in a very Italian-American family. My grandfather was a butcher, and his name was Primo Restaurant. And luckily, I grew up right across the street from my grandparents. So I would always go scope out what my grandmother was making for dinner. I knew what my mom was making, so I would choose which one looked better or have a little of both. So it was a luxury.
Yeah, that is the luxury. My mom did not cook very much. I told you that we had chickens that we slaughtered on our property, but my mother used salt and pepper, and that was it. So I still don't know how to cook today, but I could slaughter an animal for you.
Well, that's good. That's a great skill to have. You're hired at Primo.
But what do you think got you? Do you have a defining moment that you remember that you were like, I think it's in me to make food and to be a chef and to own a restaurant?
Yeah, it's funny because growing up, with a lot of really great cooks in my family, which were mostly the women, restaurants back in those days the chefs were mostly men or male run. So I didn't really consider it as a career option. And I was going to college and working in a restaurant in the front of the house. And I was always probably driving the chef crazy, asking him a million questions. And he said, you should check out the Culinary Institute of America. I think you really have a knack for cooking. And I was like, I don't know. And then I went, and I immediately just fell in love. So,
do you remember the first dish you made that you were like, this is it. It's in me?
Well, I mean, when we were even like in elementary school and junior high school, my mom took a job. So we had to make dinner. We would rotate it, my siblings, my brother and my sister and myself. And speaking of chicken, I did a lot of roast chicken because that was pretty easy. But I would like dig in her spice cabinet and try and get creative.
And then after school, did you go right to New York to work at that restaurant that you were telling me about that had like 500 acres?
Oh, Old Chatham Sheep Herding Company. No, we're actually right after school. I went to work at the Greenbrier in West Virginia, which It's a big resort, and they had an apprenticeship program. I had finished school, so I wasn't really doing the apprenticeship program, but they were very serious as far as the kitchen was concerned. And the chef was a German chef named Hartmut Henke. He was very stern and very scary. But I was there for a season. And while I was there, they had a guest chef series. And one of the chefs that came to cook there was Larry Forgione from New York City. And his restaurant was called An American Place. And I just really hit it off with him when he was cooking at the Greenbrier. And I said, well, I'm going to be looking for a job after the season is over. And we exchanged phone numbers, and I ended up going to work for him. And I stayed with him actually for like 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And is that when you pivoted to something a little bit more rural?
Yeah, so Larry's restaurant, even though it was in Manhattan, he grew up on the end of Long Island. His grandmother had a duck farm, and he was one of the pioneers of farm-to-table cooking. He really scoured out mushroom foragers and poultry producers. We had someone for every ingredient. We had actually at the time, which is really ironic, but Rod Mitchell from Brown Trading here in Maine would drive Larry's fish down to New York City a couple days a week. He had a shop right in Camden at that time.
No way.
So long relationships.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you land in Rockland?
So I had gone to college before culinary school at the University of Maine. And after working in New York for Larry, I went down to Miami to open a restaurant for him. And I met a guy. His family had a restaurant linen supply company in Miami, and I was opening this restaurant for Larry. And we hit it off, and we ended up moving to San Francisco together. We moved to Denver. I roped him into getting into the restaurant business, and we both had Maine connections. His parents had bought a piece of property on Dodge Mountain in Rockland, and they were building a summer house. And I had some family in Rockport, and we started looking at this area. I was working upstate New York at Old Chatham Sheep Herding Company for about 6 years. And whenever we got a break, we would come up to Mid-Coast Maine because we had family. But at the time, Rockland was very desolate. Camden was the place to be back then. Rockland was at 7 o'clock at night. You could see tumbleweeds down the street, which is not the same anymore. So I said, I'm not sure if it's going to work here, what I want to do. And I wanted to have a farm. I wanted to find a restaurant with a piece of land, and have animals and greenhouses and grow our food. And I said, we'll give it a try. And if it doesn't work, we'll go somewhere else.
26 years later,
here I am.
Here you are. And it is a place that I hear people say they will come up to Maine for the weekend, and they come up to go to McClune's, and they come up to go to Primo, and they eat there both days, their lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
And it's just a place where people go to celebrate. Like it is an experience when someone goes to Primo. And I know that every tiny detail has been thought about a lot.
Yeah.
And that is so beautiful and amazing and different than I think a lot of restaurants out there. But I do want to back up and talk a little bit about how you've seen Rockland change over the last 26 years that you've been running a restaurant.
It's really amazing. I mean, when I first got here, I made a commitment that I was going to really try and immerse myself in the community. So I volunteered for St. Peter's Soup Kitchen quite often, and really searched out all the local businesses that I could weave into Primo. How could I do as much locally as possible? And there wasn't a lot, but as the years went on, more and more people moved into the town. Lots of small farms started popping up, cheese makers, some which actually had worked with me in the past.
Oh, wow.
And small businesses. I mean, right next door we have Blue Baron, and he comes to my farm, and we harvest botanicals, and we make a Primo gin.
Oh, wow.
So I think, going from when Rockland was very much a blue collar fisherman town, which is great, and it still is, to now it's almost, hate to say it, but it could be like the Hamptons. But you know what I love about it is that at Primo, you can walk through the dining room on any given night and you'll see the fishermen, and you'll see somebody in torn up khakis and boat shoes that might have a couple $1 million yacht in the harbor.
Yeah, that is a wild thing that I think a lot of people remark about in the Mid-Coast is you just never know who you're sitting next to.
It's true. It's very true.
And I do think that is something that's also really special. And also you very thoughtfully created that place where someone can come from the fanciest place on earth and enjoy and love the meal. And also the local fishermen can come in and enjoy something at the bar. And you said a lot of your regulars have standing reservations and they book their New Year's reservation a long time in advance. And that's also something, I don't know that narrative is always out there about Primo. So I'm glad we're getting a chance to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you are in one restaurant for that long. And I've, like many of my customers who came from the beginning, maybe just had a young family and now their kids are getting married and they're having grandchildren, and to be part of someone's life for that long as a restaurant is really cool.
Yeah. I want to talk a little about the land that you have there. So when we talked before, you told me that there's room for 160 people at Primo, and then 0KM can also comfortably fit 65 people. And actually, let's talk about your Sunday afternoons from 1 to 4.
Sure. So we actually built that space during COVID. It was 2020, and we were mandated to take 50% of our seats out. And so we were trying to get creative on how to, one is not make the dining room feel really empty, but also what could we do to accommodate more guests and stay alive as a business and keep my employees employed. So we partnered up with Harbor Square Gallery, and we took our tables out and we put sculptures all through the restaurant, which made it feel like almost like you were eating in a gallery, which was really fun. And then I was going to just put a tent up and put tables outside, and then I decided, well, let's make a small pavilion. And as we were building it, my builder, one day we got up on the roof of it, and I stood on the roof, and it felt like you were in the ocean and in the garden at the same time. And that's how we came up with the name 0 kilometers, which is a term that's used. So 0KM, it's a term that's used in Italy for food that hasn't traveled any miles. So it's organic, it's right from the farm or right from the sea right there. And so that space has become like a really fun Sunday event space. We have live music every Sunday from 1 to 4. We do small plates and oysters and lots of like little fun plates and slushies and, beer, local beer, some mocktails. And we built a children's area outside. So parents can come and just hang out and relax, listen to music, and the kids can run on the farm and go feed the chickens and swing on the swings.
That's amazing. One of the other things I was surprised to learn when we talked last was that you have an enormous team.
Yes.
So in the summer, how many people are working at Primo?
Gosh, I think, when we're in peak season, it could be about 80 people. But if you think about, we do everything from scratch by hand. And literally that means from the ground up. We're planting seeds, growing vegetables, harvesting the vegetables, washing the vegetables. So things like in a normal restaurant, you would get a box of lettuce. But for us, we start from the ground up. So that's a team that works on the farm. We have a team that works in the office, and then a morning prep crew. And then my bakery crew comes in early in the morning. And then as far as the cooks and the servers and bartenders and bussers and dishwashers all come in the afternoon. So it's buzzing pretty much around the clock.
Yeah. And not only do you have this enormous team, but you also have people who are foraging and they bring in their mushrooms. And you have a whole bunch of fishermen that come directly from their boat and they drop off their scallops and their, what else?
Halibut.
Their halibut.
We have someone who forages wild oysters for us once a week for the Sunday event. He also brings me lots of wild, like marsh grasses and sea beans and things, seaweeds, different sea products mostly. We have a few foragers who bring mushrooms and some wild herbs, wild berries. But we really, like Larry Forgione did, I kind of have the same philosophy where I want a specialist for each ingredient. So we have one person we get our blueberries from. We get one person that makes cider vinegar for us, and we get apples from them. And we crush apples as well in the fall. But really, really particular to the ingredients and the location where it's coming from.
I remember you said that you spin your own honey on the farm as well, which is wild to me to think about.
So, I mean, having bees is really important when you have a garden, obviously. And so we keep bees, the byproduct of that, having the bees pollinating all of our flowers and our vegetables, we get the honey. And then once we spin the honey, we actually make a honey wine with the wax.
Wow.
So we ferment that and we make a honey vinegar. So it's really, because it's a farm, I like to call it a full circle kitchen, but we have pigs and we have chickens for eggs, laying hens, and we have broiler chickens, which, like you did, I slaughter every Saturday with my cooks. We have a producer's license to do that on property. And it creates a system, like a closed loop system. So we're recycling. We have color-coded buckets in the kitchen. One is orange for pig food, one is blue for chicken food, one is white for compost, and we're sorting all of our scraps, so there's very little waste.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think you told me too that you do everything the hard way.
Yeah.
That's Primo's way.
Yeah, so I love Italy, and I really love Sicily the most, and I spent some time there a few years ago, and I kept seeing this graffiti on the wall. It said "Scoso Vive," and I was asking a few people around the island, what does "Scoso Vive" mean? And they said it means shaken lives, because Sicily has Mount Etna, so it's an active volcano, and because of that, their land is super fertile, really high in minerals, and the food that they grow is wild and beautiful. The grapes for their wine is fantastic. But he said it's like living on a volcano. It's like a shaken life. Like you have to do everything the hard way because you never know if it's going to be the last day.
And that's
the philosophy we follow.
And maybe even you have a tattoo of that. That's
do.
Right.
That's my only tattoo.
And you also have a really incredible bar program. Paul is there as your sommelier.
Yes. So Paul Cook, and he's been with me almost since the beginning. He's really talented. I love his style because we have a similar palate. So we both like old world wines, Spanish, Italian, French. And he's always very cautiously looking for value to give to the guests, and things that pair well with our food and obviously with seafood, and also then a lot of pork heavy on my menu, lots of pork products. But we also have Rob Roy, who is our lead, our beverage manager and our lead bartender, who's super creative, and he's also been with me for years. That's the thing. I'm really fortunate to have many of my employees stay for a length of time. My pastry chef this will be her 20th season.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it is fortunate, but also you obviously cultivate a place where people want to stay.
Yeah, it's very much a family atmosphere. You're together with these people for so long every day, and what we're doing is, I almost feel like sometimes it feels like you're birthing a baby just to get a new menu out. And you do that together with your people. You bond pretty tightly.
And how often do you put a new menu out?
So we actually incrementally change our menu every day.
Wow.
So it really depends on what's coming from the farm, or one of our local farmers, what's coming from the fishermen, what's coming from the garden, and what's in season and how things sell. So you never really know exactly. It's kind of a gamble. But after 26 years, I kind of feel like I can craft it and lead them a certain way.
That's a skill. That's a talent or a gift. What do you wish that the community knew about Primo? Even though you've been here for a long time,
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people who, when I first moved here and I came from Old Chatham, when I left Old Chatham, I was there for 5.5 years, and it was a relay and chateau property. And we had a lot of success in a short amount of time. And when I left there, they actually closed. So everyone was like, where did she go? And then when I opened in Rockland, Maine, people were like, oh my God, why Maine? But there was like this rumor that you had to book in advance, like 3 months to get a reservation, which is not true at all. We always leave a few tables open. We have our bar seats open. But I think, there's still so many people who in the area who don't, when they come into dinner, they just come in, park their car, walk in, have dinner and leave. But they don't walk the farm and see really what's happening and connect the dots.
How many acres do you have?
So now I have 10 acres. We started with about 3.5, almost 4. And then I've recently purchased the back piece, which was owned by UPS. They're right behind us in the industrial park. And then the neighboring 5 acres, it's like a little bit adjacent, which we're just about to start developing.
Exciting.
So, yeah.
So also last time we talked, we chatted about a couple of items that stay on your menu no matter what. And so I would love for you to share that.
Okay. So there's one dish that I think I can never take off, and it's a pork salt and boca. I used to make it for Primo, for my grandfather. And it's a very simple dish. It's pork scallopini, with like a mushroom, sage, and Madeira sauce, and it's mashed potatoes, prosciutto, and spinach. But the sauce is key. It takes probably about 3 days to make the sauce. You have to make the stock, and then you have to trim the meat and take all the scraps and make. So you make a stock, and then you make a sauce, and then we finish the sauce with the herbs and the mushrooms and everything else. So that dish, it's kind of like a warm hug. A lot of people get that when if it's cold weather, rainy day, it cheers you up. But if you're feeling bad, it cheers you up. It's one of those dishes. And then, and it stems from a classic, but it's my version of it. Our farmer salad is also really special because we use our levain, which is our sourdough bread, which we've had this starter now for, let me think, 31 and a half years and with a sourdough starter, you have to feed it every day. So it's been like a baby to me. So we use the sourdough levain to make our croutons, and then we grow the greens for that salad. We poach one of our farm eggs for that salad, and we also make bacon for that. And it's just a really special salad, and everything is right from there. That's a true 0 km salad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What percentage of the food that you serve is 0 km?
So it really depends on the time of year. However, we do a lot of things such as like dehydrating, pickling, flash freezing, and things to capture the moment when something is in season. So like when we open in May, there are things growing in the garden such as rhubarb and little pea tendrils and delicate greens. And we have the greenhouses going for greens, but there's not a ton of vegetables yet. Maybe asparagus start peeking through. So then we really depend on our larder. So we have lots of pickled turnips from last season, or krauts and kimchis and different things like that we put up, as well as hot sauces. Yeah, we take when the herbs are in full bloom, we harvest them, we dry them, we make different compound butters and put them in the freezer. So we have a lot to play with, even when it's not. But when we're really in peak, I want to say it's close to 80%.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. If someone hasn't been to Primo and they're listening to this podcast, what do you want them to come in and try?
Well, it's hard because we do change the menu so often. So for us, we get excited about a new ingredient when it just starts, for its season, whether it's like, I love rhubarb, but so I think the staff also gets very excited because we have a pre-shift meeting every night and I explain the dishes. They taste the dish, they see it. So if a fisherman calls me, likely from his boat, and he's coming in and says, I have a beautiful halibut, I have some mackerel, or I have a bluefin tuna, we scurry and get it right on the menu. And I think the staff gets really excited when they see that.
That is really exciting. What else is there that you want to make sure that we talk about in this podcast, that someone who maybe lives in the Mid-Coast but hasn't been to Primo in a while, what do they have to look forward to this season?
More of the same. We're trying to possibly get the upstairs in the 0KM building open, which I have a town meeting next week, so we'll see. We do events in the barn, and one of the things we were going to add, so on Sundays while we're doing the 0KM, I think once a month, we're going to have a maker's market in the barn. So it'll be throughout the whole farm. So people could actually get a cocktail and stroll around the farm and then visit some local artisans and maybe buy a couple things from them, just to really celebrate the community that we're in and all the beautiful things that happen in this state.
That's amazing. Before we finish up, what are you famous for?
Oh, gosh. I think really sustainability is really important to me, and taking care of like my little piece of Maine. And I feel as if when I travel in Italy and you go town to town, you can really taste the flavor of the town. Where I just drove up and down the coast to Florida and back. And you really have to search it out to do that in this country. And I think Maine is so cool that we have all these beautiful resources, but to really embrace who we are in that place and make it super special for people to have an experience when they come, not just a meal.
I love that answer. And it is different than what you answered for the book.
Is it? Okay.
You said in the book, people will comment about how amazing the food tastes. And you want to call out that it's because it's so fresh.
Yeah.
That's what makes it so incredibly special. And yeah.
No, and I also think I like to take a classic dish and put a twist on it, and a lot of times it brings back a memory for someone, like, oh, my grandmother used to make this, or it reminds me of when I traveled to this location. Or I think that when food can evoke a memory for someone, I think it's really important. I always like to say food is like a ribbon that ties things together.
Ooh, beautiful. Well, before we go, where can people find you online?
So we have a presence on Instagram. My personal ones is Chef Melissa K, but Primo Restaurant. And we also have a Primo Events Instagram page.
Oh, okay.
And also on Facebook.
Awesome. And PrimoRestaurant.com?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, April.
Hi, I'm Jess Dean with Remax Jarrett & Cohn here in Mid-Coast, Maine. Our real estate agency has 4 offices across the Mid-Coast, but more importantly, we live and work in the communities we serve. Our agents aren't just here for real estate. We're showing up for our neighbors. We support local businesses, volunteer at events, and regularly give back through fundraisers and community initiatives. This isn't just where we work, it's home, and we care about the people who make it special. Find home with Remax Jarrett & Cohn.